What's good, party people? We are back with another episode of the podcast. We have an illustrious guest with us today. We know her personally. I know her a little bit more personally. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to have MCC certified executive leadership coach, Miss Elena Armijo. Give it up, party people. That's what's up. What's up? Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, Mama.
Thank you.
Yeah, girl. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me on the show,
welcome
y'all.
and shit. No problem. Yeah, so we know each other. If y'all don't know, we know each other pretty well. This is my lady. I like her very much. She's very pretty, and she says nice things to me.
Checks all the boxes.
That's right.
Checks all the boxes.
No, but we have you here because you are an amazing human in the world that's doing awesome stuff through your business with other people, leaders all over the world, and we would love to talk to you a little bit about that. Are you willing to do that?
Always
Hell
willing
yeah.
to talk about
That's
anything and everything in the world.
Well, before we do that, I would love if you don't mind, just take a minute or so and just kind of introduce yourself. I'm sure you do this all the time. You probably got a little spiel, but we'd love to hear it. Introduce yourself to the people.
I love what I do. I freaking love what I do. I love being a coach. And I pivoted to coaching about 9 years ago now. I met you, obviously. Singing when I was a full-time singer, doing opera singing before I pivoted in 2015 to coaching. And I'd always been looking for something that I loved as much as music if I was going to make a pivot. And I never could find anything that I loved. Thought about real estate. I thought about business school. I thought about a lot of different things and just was not in love with anything. And I was a classic case of a high achiever and high performer that burned out. So, I'd been studying music my whole life. And after 25 years of singing, I was seeing what the road was going to look like for the next 30 years in the opera world and was really confronted and sad and lonely. And I thought, man, I don't know if I'm built for this life. There was one point that I talk about a lot where I was on the road 4 years straight, 10 months out of the year. And I'd come and I'd just change my suitcase for some clothes, depending on the season in New York. And it was exciting and exhilarating. And I got to see the world in my 20s that way. I got to meet a lot of cool people and be exposed to a lot of different cultures and learn and grow. And I was equally miserable. And that was a really hard thing to be at the same time because I was doing what most singers want to do. I was on the path and I was on my way. It was kind of a mid-level career. I definitely was not at the top yet. And I could see that if I had continued going that direction, I would be. But I had this immense guilt because I hated it. And I hated the business of music. And I hated the lifestyle. And it was things like I missed, birthday events at home or big, events with my friends. Like I missed a ton of weddings and a ton of funerals. And I just couldn't be present for any of that. And that broke my heart. And gosh, I think by the time you met me, babe, I think I was maybe on my fourth failed relationship in 3 years and nothing was sustainable, from that lens. So I just had a lot of stories about it and I was really unhappy and I hired a coach myself and I didn't know anything about coaching. I had a lot of judgments about coaching, didn't think it would work. And when I did, I slowly fell in love with it as a profession as I was working through it. So made the big jump in 2015 and I have not looked back. I've had a lot of fun. Yeah.
I also really want to know your definition and how you would explain in as basic terms as possible what a coach does in 2024. We it's such a buzzword, right? Everybody's a coach, everybody's a this and that. But what you do is different. What you do is a lot different. How would you describe it?
Coaching is having a partner on your journey. That's the easiest way I would describe it in layman's terms. There's a lot of noise in the coaching industry right now, and coaching was actually born. Think of a baby being born of consulting and therapy. We're in the middle. And each one of those vocations are very important in our world. I like to talk about each of them when I'm talking about coaching for people that have never worked with a coach or experienced a coach. We typically say that therapists work in past-based conversations and heal something from the past to get you to present day to function in a different way. And they have future-based conversations too, but the majority of the work is from the past. And a coach might dip into the past and ask you some things that have happened in your childhood or in your journey along the way, but we don't stay there. And we're always in a future-based conversation. So that's one of the main differences between coaching and therapy. And then with consulting, consultants are great, man. They're experts of the world, right? So you hire somebody to tell you how to do something. Like, Austin, like, I'm calling you for anything related to any kind of tech issue I might ever need, because I know that you're somewhat of an expert in that field and you have a lot of expertise. So I'm literally going to call somebody to say, tell me how to do something. And I pay that person to tell me how. That's very different from coaching as well, because we don't actually tell you how to do anything. We hold you as the expert of your life. So my entire job is to ask you questions along the way that might uncover your blind spots or your stories while we're walking towards your future journey. And the beauty about that is that you have somebody on your side that's not going to buy into your stories, that holds you as perfectly capable and whole as a human being, just the way you are, and that there's only choice to step into. And there's a lot of work we do around that, but it's the best partnership that you can imagine. It's and it's
second best partnership you can imagine.
okay.
No, I'm sorry.
True that.
Yeah. Yes.
That's true. We'll say sometimes, right, babe?
Yeah, that sounds
depending
right.
on the day.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, sorry.
Depending on the day.
Tuesdays?
Tuesdays. Not on Tuesdays. Taco Tuesdays. No. Yeah, so that's how I describe it. And I think a lot of people are just starting to get exposed to coaching, which is really exciting in 2024, because when it was born about 40 years ago, it was kept a secret, and it was a very elite thing. Only the top, 5% had coaches, and they were typically people that were high up in the business world that had access to coaches and could work with people that had the fluid motion between consulting and coaching. So what I love is now it's becoming a staple, and there's a lot more access for a lot of different types of people, a lot of different types of coaches out there, and more people are experiencing it, which is cool.
That's awesome. And I'm going to ask a question from the cynic's point of view, because I'm the resident cynic. So got to represent.
I love my cynics. I love it.
So as someone that recently has found therapy and mental health is becoming less of a stigma for folks, and I think that's really been a great development in our society. I'm curious to know for those people that hear the word coaching and just immediately shut down. You find a therapist and they have certain degrees and certain expertise and certain education backgrounds. So what sort of qualifications and certifications do coaches have that make them qualified to do this kind of work?
Yeah, it's a really important question. I'm so glad you asked it, because I have strong feelings about this, because there is a lot of noise right now. And it's because it's an unregulated or unlicensed industry, right? And I don't actually think, at one point I thought we were moving towards licensure. And now I think because there's so much freedom and access of how people build their business as a coach, I don't know that we'll ever be a licensed profession. So with that in mind, we have a governing body called the International Coach Federation, which is the organization that creates all the ethics of coaching that we need to follow. So they have pretty high standards, and you can get certified in various ways through the ICF. And that is the organization that's leading the charge and making sure that coaches are aligned and accountable and getting the right training. So what does that mean? You're going to school for an entire year. You're turning in recordings. You're being reviewed. You're being audited on your clients. You are, you're being held accountable with continuing education. So it does operate a lot like any other licensing profession would. And they're the ones that are groundbreaking. They're the ones that are bringing it forward. There is a lot of talk in the industry right now whether or not you should be certified through the ICF, because there are a lot of people that are coaching that are not certified. And it doesn't mean that they're not a good coach. So I do encourage people to think about what kind of a coach they want to work with first, and then look at credentials second. I mean, I'm always the kind of person, like I'm an opera singer. So to me, mastery of a craft was everything, right? I worked 25 years to master singing. So it's very important to me in my value system that I master the craft of coaching as well, which is why I went to the highest level of credential in coaching.
Who's the person that needs a coach? Who, like anyone who's out there and they're curious about coaching, who do you find coming to your door? What kind of people?
And if I can piggyback off of that, because to add to that, I'd be curious to know, you had mentioned, therapy is sort of a focus on the past, coaching is sort of on the present and moving forward. How do you find, how being that person, you seeking them out, how do you find them, and how do you help somebody discern between whether they need therapy or could use a coach? Like how do you, sorry, that's like a 2-part question.
Yeah.
But,
no, it's good.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'll start with yours first, Austin. When people come through the door, when they're confused about if it should be therapy or coaching, we just have a really thorough talk about what's in their way. What are the gaps to creating what they want? And based on that, through my training, if it's an emotional conversation where people are getting stuck in the emotion frequently, and again, it doesn't mean that you're not allowed to have emotions in coaching. Of course, I have lots of clients that cry or get angry, or we're working on accessing anger or different emotions that they maybe have never felt before. But the difference is if a client gets stuck there often, like 4, 5, 6 sessions go and we can't get the engine moving, then that's usually a sign that this might be a therapeutic issue, and we might need to bring in support from a therapist. Many of my clients have a therapist and a coach at the same time. To me, that is the ultimate package of moving forward, is if you can do both, you're going to go further, faster, but also deeper. Because it's not so much about going fast as it is getting really thorough healing and movement in your life with a team. So then you're thinking as a team component. So to answer your question, Aaron, it's like the people that come to me usually are investing in a team approach for their life, right? And they're looking at high achievers or high performers like myself that want to have more impact in the world, that want to expand how they lead teams, their own leadership. They want to change careers. They want to completely pivot.
You must see a lot of that, like a lot of people in transition.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a really common theme, because we're in a day and age now where most people don't want to do one thing for their whole life, no matter who they are, right? Like they want to experience more of life. So then how do they transition? So those are some of the things that people come to me for. Another common one for me specifically, because of how I've moved and built my business in the world, has been people that are coming to reclaim their voice in high level positions. So it's a lot of marginalized people who made it to the C-suite or made it to a leadership position, and they don't have a lot of support. They haven't had a lot of training. They have all these multi-layered conversations that are going on that sometimes their leaders can't support them with, and they want somewhere to feel safe to do that work and talk about it.
I love that. And I think a lot of the focus of this beginning part of the conversation has been on the individual. And from what I understand, you mentioned you're talking about VPs and high level corporate people. From what I understand, you go into organizations and help them on an organizational level. Can you speak to that a little bit, what that work looks like?
Yeah. So about 3 or 4 years after I started coaching, I was realizing that I was starting to see a pattern in people that I worked with, which was they were having a lot of personal success and a lot of personal growth and transformation, but the place they were working wasn't necessarily changing. And even though they were changing and growing, they were finding it harder to stay in positions because nothing else around them was changing, right? So I started thinking about 5 years ago, I said, man, I wish I could have more impact as a coach besides one-to-one. And you can do group work, you can run retreats, You can do all kinds of things, right, to make that happen. But what was really interesting to me was going in and working with companies who wanted to have a complete shift in how they were relating to their people and to each other. So transforming a culture from the foundation and really starting with trust and vulnerability and rebuilding the way we talk to each other and have tough conversations. Those things really intrigued me, because if people could sit at a table and actually talk to each other again, instead of making assumptions or doing it one way, not seeing diversity of thought in a room, then what magic could happen, right? So I launched the C-Suite Collective about 2.5 years ago, which is a collective of coaches. There's 23 of us that are committed together to go into organizations and change the culture from the inside out, and starting with work on ourselves, but also work on the teams. And that has been really fun and fulfilling.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's dope, man.
It's really cool.
I always love hearing about what you do. I know what you do, but I love hearing about it again. It's dope. It's really cool.
It's a lot of fun.
World-changing, life-changing shit. Like, it's like the real deal. Yeah, man.
It is. And it's just fun.
My bad. Yeah, no, I really, we don't really talk about this, but like, how often do we see like these people in the world who claim, who just are pushing the narrative of coaching without any training, without any focus? What are your thoughts on that? Talk your shit, queen.
Talk your shit, lady. What you're talking about is a group of people who see a lane. We talk about this a lot when we moved to California, right, Aaron? I was really hesitant to move to California because the common theme out here is there's a life coach on every corner, right? Or there's a snake oil salesman kind of feel to coaching in general. And I do think that is still a stigma. And our job as coaches is to keep educating people on what is coaching and what's not. So I really love the question. I think, look, if anybody is trying to sell you something and saying that they're going to change your life, run in the other direction. Because number one, they don't have the power to do that. You do. It's all about you. So anybody that is centering their sales tactic to you around who they're going to be for you, or how they're going to change your life, or how their tools work for transformation. Look, some of that does work, and they're consultants. They're not a coach. A coach believes you have all the answers, and my job is to trust that and have you see that in yourself as a mirror. So anybody who's telling you that they're going to be the ones for you and that you got to sign up with them, run. Anybody who's getting on a phone with you and giving you strong opinions about what you should or shouldn't do with your life, run. They're in a conversation that's about them and not about you. I think I mentioned before we were recording, one of my other fancy titles is Certified Dare to Lead Facilitator, and that's with Brene Brown. And I work with her and her team quite a bit and do a lot of her work in the world around Dare to Lead trainings. And it would be really easy to make her a guru. Do you know what I mean? Like, it would be really easy to say, Brene Brown is the way, and this is the way. Or even for myself, not only myself, right? Like following her, but selling people that. And that would do her a disservice for her work, but also the person in front of me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, I kind of, you had mentioned, again, executive and leadership in your particular niche. I'd be curious to know, in that line of work, when you go into an organization and you're working with folks like that, what are your metrics for success? Like, how do you see that what you're doing is working for them, and how do you gauge that?
Well, the coolest thing is that they set their metrics. So I don't even need to set their metrics, right? They're the ones that set them. And I say, like, what you want to create and what does it look like? And tell me all about it, right? And we get really clear and tangible on what that looks like. So for some of my executives, it might look like in 1 year, I want 4 of my team members to have expanded their voice in leadership in this organization. I want to have renegotiated funds for how we use funds for development, or I want to look for another job. Like I have that, right? So like in 6 months or a year, we're in a whole new position. and I want to recreate what my values are and what that means to me. So those might be some of the tangible goals that we set on the table at the beginning of the contract. And then they're the ones that look back and go, whoa, we did all of that in 6 months and a year. And towards the end of the engagement, we usually take stock and say, okay, what have you created? And I would say 98% of my clients reach every goal they set forward.
Wow.
Cool.
And it's, yes, it has to do with me, but really it's them, right? Like it's all their work that they're doing.
So you're empowering them. I think that's what I'm getting from that. And that's pretty incredible is you're bringing the best out in people that's already there. And you're leading it out. And I think that's amazing. And people don't know that they have that ability.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's almost like people relate to coaching as you have the magic formula and you're going to come down and hand down the formula to them and then like their life's going to be better. Like now they're going to take off. I just had to pay a coach this amount of money to make sure I check all the boxes and shit. But what that's what I love about what you do is it's just seems so much like a journey with someone. Like it's almost like you are like walking through a forest together and discovering what can be as opposed to what is.
Yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. And I have a personal belief, my value system as a human being and a coach is that everything goes back to love. And not everybody believes that and not everybody leads that way, but I do. So what's really beautiful about that is that when I'm holding that space for you and you get to determine what that means for you in your life, what that looks like, all kinds of new things are created. And, it's hard to be with because a lot of my clients will write me I mean, this, Aaron, like I have a client probably once a week tell me like, you have changed my life.
Yeah.
And that's really like, I'm always like, that's amazing. And also you changed your life. Like, let me remind you, because I think for everybody involved, right? Me and my clients, it's really hard to own what you've created and be with that success. But it really is a transformational conversation because they step into a new version of themselves that maybe they just forgot existed. It's not that it ever wasn't there.
Yeah.
They just forgot some stuff along the way.
Right. Yeah. And what I'm really getting is like how scary, like maybe that initial session might be, how when they say, oh, like, this is what I want to do. I don't think I can do it. Or, talk us through that. Talk us through some of the successes. I know you can't get specific without breaking a bunch of shit laws. So, but like, tell us some of the wins that you're that people should know about when coaching is involved. Because I think that's the real value of this conversation. Is a lot of people, they hear the buzzwords, they don't know what's going on, but what is possible with coaching?
Well, some of my recent clients, I'm just thinking the ones I've had even in the last year.
Tread lightly.
Right?
We'll call them Sarah.
All of my Sarahs. My Sarahs and my Toms.
Yeah, Sarah and Tom.
What are some of the successes? Well, one just recently launched a big book in the world. And it was something that they were working through in a labor of love, and they were scared to be seen in the world. They wanted to do it. They'd always kind of put it on a back burner. And now that book is out in the world. And they're on tour with it, and they're seeing themselves reflected in what they wrote, and people are hiring them for speaking engagements and workshops and events where they can share what they wrote. So that's, a tangible one, I would say.
Right.
Another win recently has been someone who really saw themselves take a big leap out of a current position that they were doing into a new role, and had zero idea if they could do it. And they took a huge chance. They left a great job that paid a lot of money, and they had no idea if what they were building would work. And a year and a half later, this client is like, I cannot believe that I waited so long. And is stunned.
To make the change?
Yeah. And is stunned to see what has been created and how happy they are and how fulfilled they are. And they're still scared. They still wake up every day and get scared. That doesn't go away, right? But they have a different relationship to it. I think that's been a really big one. And I think I'm thinking of some of my older clients, meaning like the ones that have been with me longer. Those wins have been like, they just love themselves more deeply than they ever did. And, the self-love
Well,
can be a
damn.
tricky topic too, because like that's one of those like buzzwords that I'm like, California,
Mm.
self,
Yeah.
they're like peace, love, massages, bubble baths. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
man.
No.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Right. But I wouldn't call it
Sounds
life
good.
changing.
Not life-changing. Yeah. And also very privileged. But when I think of self-love, if somebody can stand up and talk to themselves differently than they did 2 months ago, and is a little kinder in their self-talk as they're
Yeah.
walking through fear, that's a huge win,
Totally.
right? Like that is a redefinition of self-love.
Yeah. It sounds like you're rebuilding how people think about themselves and their careers. Like essentially kind of going and like reconfiguring and through like just speaking, right? There's no like big healing thing that's happening here, but you are showing them places that they haven't looked, and it sounds like they're finding a lot of value in it.
Yeah. And the main difference between therapy and coaching, and Austin, I so feel you. Like I was in therapy for a long time, and like half the time I was like, what the hell am I doing here? like I sit here and I talk, and this person looks at me and goes, and then like says, our time's up,
That's right.
or some version of that,
Yeah. Pay your bill on the way out.
Yeah. And look, I don't mean to down those people, but it took me a long time to find somebody that I actually gelled with. And then I realized, what was so powerful for me and what made a difference after some of the traditional therapy methods I had been through was me being the leader of my life, not somebody else. Right. So as a coach, again, saying, what do you want to create? And then you tell me what you want to create. And I go, cool. What's in the way? And then you tell me what's in the way. And then I go, all right. So now you know what's in the way and you know what you want. So what shall we do next? Right. So there's a lot of action and movement underneath the tough conversations, but ultimately you're the one driving the bus. And to me, that's the most powerful work because it comes from you, not from a book, not from a methodology, not from a tool, but from you. And that's you in the driver's seat of your life.
That sounds nice. I want to be in the driver's seat of my life. I'm still working on that part.
You are.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody like me if I'm like, well, I don't feel like I'm in control of my life. I don't think I have what I need to do what I need to do. Everything's not great, coach. What would you say to me?
I would probably ask you
For your Venmo account, first of all.
Yes,
First
just
off.
like
See what
all
he's
the
trying to do.
online,
See what he's trying
the
to do.
online snake oils. Yes, please pay here.
Oil.
No, what would I say to you? I think I'd ask you. I wouldn't say anything. I'd ask you. I'd say, what do you notice when you look around in your life outside of your stories? Like if you would actually slow down and look around, what do you see that you've created?
What do I see?
We're getting in deep.
Sheesh, man.
So, what do you see?
I see a lot of places where I forfeit a lot of power. I see a lot of places where I don't assert myself in a way that would make me feel like I'm representing or advocating for myself. Yeah, I'd probably say something like that. Not me though. That's what the person would say. I would. I'm fine. I'm great. I don't need therapy. I don't need coaching. No.
But see,
yeah.
even slowing down in that moment, like what's the value of you distinguishing that? Because now that you've said that, you've said it in front of me, you've said it in front of Austin, you've said it in front of the world, right?
Right.
So now what's present once that's in the space?
Sounds like I have more control over my life than I thought.
maybe, or we just get to distinguish like there's some untruth in there, right? Like there's some stuff you're making up. Yeah.
Sure.
And then we can talk about why. You can tell me all the reasons like you want to make up those stories. That's cool. But when we uncover what's fact versus interpretation or what is actually going on and what could be a different approach to your relationship to it.
Yeah.
You might step into something else.
I hear that. Okay. Well, I consider that. I'll think about that. No. No,
Not
thank
that
you
I
for the
coach you.
insight.
We do not coach each other.
No, hell no.
Do not coach me.
Hell no, don't
That is
coach
a
me.
recipe for disaster. Do not coach your partners.
Some people can't cook. Don't do that.
Exactly.
Don't do that. Some
Don't do
people are
that.
terrible cooks.
Don't do that.
I'm curious what someone in your line of work, you must talk to a lot of people who are active in a lot of spaces, whether it be political or like executive places. What are you seeing coming down the pipeline? What could you say to us to let us know, like, what's the forecast of what you're coaching these days?
What I'm seeing is this is a tough year. And look, it's not any tougher than any other year though, right? Like how many times have we said that? Like think back to 2020 and the pandemic and think back to whatever
2020 was going to be my
year.
year, let me tell you. I
Yeah,
thought
right?
2020 was going to be it for me.
Yeah.
It was not.
So what's interesting about this is that every year I say that, I'm like, man, this is a tough year. But actually, the older I get, the more I realize like life is just tough, man. So what we're seeing from organizations is everybody's particular to 2024. Everybody's in a conversation about the elections. And really from the standpoint of how do I support my people through it? Not even like right or wrong or picking a side or there are a couple of companies that have said like, if our company chooses to endorse one of the candidates and half of our employees don't agree, then what? Right. So we have those conversations too. But really it's people have their eye on, we want to support people during this time because we know it's going to get heated and tough in a binary conversation, which we have put ourselves in as a country, right? When there's two people that are against each other for the presidency, it's automatically a binary conversation, which makes it really tough to get people to be in community again around it. Yeah. So that's one of the big things we're talking to companies about is how do we actually come to the table and have our differences and still be in the conversation without leaving or without shame or make wrong or my way is the right way, right? So bringing people back to the table again and learning to honor differences, but stay in the conversation.
Yeah. What would you say to people who would say that's impossible? That's a pipe dream?
I would ask those people what they're actually afraid of. Because it's easy to say something is a pipe dream and then stay on the sidelines instead of doing the work to be uncomfortable and afraid and courageous at the same time. So I would say to those people, great, you're allowed to have your opinion, right? Because we said all means all. So if you think it's a pipe dream, come tell me more about that and what you're actually afraid of. Because if it's a pipe dream, then what does that mean for your life and for you and for your company, right?
Damn.
Yeah, I think, look, I practice what I preach and I really believe leaders have to go first. And so if I'm the one that's saying all means all, I really mean like I have to have space for every conversation. Yeah. And not make it wrong, right? Not have my views be the one that get all over people. So that's one thing I would say. And a lot of the other conversations we're in right now are really hard around Israel and Palestine and Gaza.
Sure. Yeah.
Those have been tearing people apart right now, right? And we're seeing kind of what happened. I mean, this is not a fair comparison by any way, shape, or form, but I don't know if y'all remember when families got torn apart around Trump the first time he got elected.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We were seeing the same thing. Like families were divided. People were cutting out friendships. People couldn't talk about things online. People were very stuck in one side or the other. And it caused a lot of grief and heartache and pain. And we're seeing some of the same things happen now. We're coming right back to the middle again. Like, hey, come sit at the table. Let's talk about this. Yeah. And it's so cool to be in a conversation where we have someone who is a Zionist and we have someone who is a Jewish person who completely supports the Israeli government. And then we have a person who's Jewish who doesn't support the Israeli government. And then we have people that are pro-Palestine and want everything to stop, right? And saying it's a genocide. So imagine all of those people sitting at one dinner table, right? And having a conversation. Because that's actually what we create in a boardroom or in a corporation. Wow. We all sit together and there's a lot of companies that are like, nope, we're not talking about politics. We're leaving it out. We don't want anything to do with that. And those are unfortunately the companies that have a lot of undertones of people being happy, burned out, wanting to leave, their values don't align, they don't feel seen or heard. So we are really helping people to have the conversation and have it be healthy and really messy on purpose so that we can get gold from the mess instead of having it all figured out and clean and everybody, you know, being able to go, see, we fixed the problem. Let's move on.
Yeah. Sheesh.
I think something that intrigues us doing this podcast is we're really interested in having conversations and providing people with tools to have conversations they wouldn't normally have and speak to people they wouldn't normally speak to. And, you know, you had mentioned, you know, you're doing this in boardrooms and, you know, not to have you solicit free advice, but what would you say to folks that have those experiences when they sit down for Thanksgiving dinner? Like what kind of tools do you think you could provide them, you know, very, very briefly to, you know, make it so that they can talk about it, but also they're not going to make it messy. Like their family, they're going to be back in the next year or the next month for another holiday. So what would you say to those folks that are trying to at least start a conversation with somebody with differing views and in these very, you know, tribulating times?
With family,
I know
family. Family is always a special thing. But listen, I mean, like families have been doing this for centuries, right? They've been disagreeing on stuff for centuries. So it's not actually that new. So the first thing I would say is, can you get everyone who's going to be in the conversation to have consent around who you're going to be for each other in it? So before you even start the conversation, can you all create some agreements? And that sounds very formal for a family, but you could actually make it really simple. Like this could look like for me, you know, I'll use my family as an example because, you know, Erin's been there for some of those conversations.
I have.
Where I'll say something like, hey, I really want to talk about this with you all. And I noticed that this could go really, really off the rails if we don't actually have some things that bring us back to us. So let's just say, like, if we're going to talk about this, if anybody needs to take a time out, we can respect 5 minutes and take a time out, but we got to come back to the conversation and finish it. You can't just leave. Right? Is everybody down for that? And it's like yay or nay, right?
Yeah.
And then, who's in for it? Another agreement could be that you want to listen and hear, and that you will respect their opinion no matter what they say, and that everybody gets a chance. Like, so whoever's talking, kind of like a talking stick or a peace talking like circle, right? Where you're handing around like who's got the talking stick at the moment and who wants to say something. And then an agreement around reparations or repair. So there is going to be damage done. And that's the thing that I tell all my executives. Tell every family member. If you are going to really dig into vulnerability and the mess, people are going to get hurt. It's not if, it's when. So when people get hurt, can you figure out a way to repair? Because that's the thing we're not practicing in society right now, is how to repair a conversation that's been in breakdown. Again, the idea isn't to never have conversations that go poorly. Otherwise, we wouldn't have diversity of thought. We wouldn't have innovation. We wouldn't have creation. We wouldn't have, you know, think about if we all believed in one thing, how many blind spots we would have, right?
Yeah.
So there's so much gold in the mess. And the real work is in repairing to get back into relationship where you're back at the center of love as a foundation, or you're back at the center of respect. If we're, you know, love, I'm talking about love if it's family, like I love you no matter what. And I may not agree with you, but I'm here and I'm not going anywhere, no matter what. Right. That's my personal view of it. It doesn't have to be everybody's. And in a boardroom, it's, I respect you. I respect you as a human being enough to actually hear your voice. And I don't agree with you, but I'm interested in finding a way forward where both of us can be heard and have our differences and still exist as humans together. Right.
Yeah.
So I think the reparation part is really, or the reparative nature of the conversation. Reparations are a different thing altogether. But
that's right. We're going to talk about that on another episode.
Exactly. I was like, there are reparations.
I'm going to lead that one also. You sit back, baby.
I think I'm going to be sick that day.
Yeah, you sit black. Thank you very much.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Sorry.
Well, but if you think about it, even reparations are born of an apology, right? They're born of repair.
The conversation, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very much that. I think we've lost that skill, and it's been really fun teaching that to people again.
Yeah, I love that. I love that the theme of repair, because so many people are just so, their phones are their blowhorns, and they'll just spew anything out that they want without any second thought of repercussions and how it makes people feel. And once you're face to face, and then you start doing the same thing, then you actually see the damage being done. And we don't have the foresight to realize, oh, there's something that comes after this. And I think that's a really great insight, that we've lost our ability to repair, because there's so much disconnect. And so how could we repair things that we don't even realize are being damaged?
Yeah.
So I think that's a great insight.
Yeah.
Right.
Man.
And what's beautiful about that is we don't know they're being damaged because we're not talking about it. We're not talking about the damage, right? We're not talking about in companies, hey, that didn't feel good and I need a second. Can we talk about that for a second so we can actually work through it? Versus, oh, okay, you're right. You're my boss, and I should be quiet and follow the rules.
Heavy. We could have a whole episode on that right there, and how that's gone. Okay, well, hey, we kept you long enough. I have 2 more questions for you, if you don't mind, Austin. I'd like to take the last 2, unless you have anything else you'd like to.
No, please.
Cool, thanks. We asked Jeff this question last time. We always like to ask our guests this question, and the question is mainly, if you had a loudspeaker and you could tell the world something about your profession and what you do, or through the lens of what you do, what would you want to tell them right now?
I love this question. I would say, remember. Actually, I would say it's the tagline of my podcast. And it's the reason I say it on my podcast each time is, remember that powerful something resides in you, and that you have the opportunity to see it, feel it, invoke it, and bring it to the world for whatever impact you want to have. So remember that in the midst of all the hard stuff out there and all the evidence that it does not go that way, it's inside of you.
Y'all can't see it right now, but I'm crying all over the microphone. It's wet. This is a waterproof microphone. Thank you for that. I think I think that's a message we could all relate to on any given day, right? Like, I appreciate you saying that. I really do. I appreciate you saying that. Is that what you say on every episode of the Collective Corner?
I do. With the Collective Corner, I say, what exactly do I say? Is the exact line is, remember there's something powerful inside you, and I'm here to see you and to support you in seeing it and being it.
He was testing you because he's listened to every episode.
Oh,
he just wanted to make sure that you knew.
Yeah.
Because he knew.
That's
he's
my
up to date.
boy.
Just
Really?
Yeah, right? Right,
Points.
right. That's what you
Put
told
those
me.
coins
Right?
on
That's
the
my
table.
boy right there. Yeah.
I just
Keep
assumed.
putting the coins on the table.
Of course. Why wouldn't I? Of course. Well, I only have one last question for you, if you don't mind. What you doing late at night?
Hey, hold on.
Yeah. Austin,
Can I come?
No.
As my cheek get instantly red.
Yeah. Well, if you ain't busy, I'd like to take you out to dinner tonight. If that's cool with you.
Wow. Yeah,
what I'm
let's
saying?
go. I mean, look, I couldn't say
I'm
no
not
to you.
Austin, thanks for being
Austin's
here,
like,
man.
this is awkward.
Yeah, it's fine. It's all right.
No. Oh my gosh. Well, that's the same question you asked, like 10 years ago? 10 years.
I did. Oh my God.
And he asked it to Jeff too, so don't flatter yourself.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
He said he asked the same 2 questions.
He
Hey,
did. Thank you.
look.
Thank you for that. He said that.
What can I say?
See where I stand.
Oh,
In
man.
the line.
Hey, it is. No, I'm just fucking with you. Hey, lady, thank you. Thank you so much for chatting
thank you.
with us,
Thank you both.
chopping it up, and
Thank
sharing
for-
some of your insight.
Yes,
Yeah,
this was
man.
wonderful. Thank you so much. And please, if you don't mind, could you just take a moment to plug your podcast and your business?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yes, please do that.
Well, my podcast is called The Collective Corner, and these gentlemen will be on it soon. We haven't scheduled it, but they will be on it. So
Hey,
That's
they'll
exciting.
be coming
we
on
did
mine.
it.
The Collective Corner, it is a mishmash of just leadership tips and badass people in the world doing cool things that are all leadership related. So that's the podcast. My business is Coaching with Elena. You can find that coachingwithelena.com for my private practice. And the collective that I run is the c-suitecollective.com. And you can find a whole bunch of goodies there too.
Awesome.
Aw.
Thank you,
Hell
Mama.
yeah.
You're a very impressive person, and we are very honored to have you with us to share your wisdom and your greatness. So thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. This has been wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks for what
Mama.
you're
Love you,
doing for
baby
the
girl.
world, y'all. Love you
We're
guys.
trying. We're trying a
trying.
thing.
Party people, ladies and gentlemen, give it up one more time for Elena Armijo.
Woo, woo, woo.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.